Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to do a drawing in Blender based on a book I just bought, How to Draw Batman, Superman, and Other DC Superheroes and Villains. And I'll leave a link in the description below in case you want to look that up. It shows for each character the process of taking it from stick figure to final form. This is very similar to the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way book, which I've discussed in a previous video about how I grew up reading that one. It also shows this process and recommends it. Unfortunately, I haven't followed that much in the past. I usually just start drawing, which I do think holds me back from improvement. So this will be a real simple video, but I'll scan in a character. I think I'm going to do Mr. Freeze, and I'll follow along in Blender, and then you can watch how that works out. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If so, please like and subscribe, and let's get started. So here I'm in Blender, and I'm going to go to File, New, and choose 2D animation, and that'll take me to Grease Pencil. And then I've already got my picture scanned in, so I'm going to go to Object Mode. I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to go to Image, Images as Planes. And if you don't have that, that's an add-on you can enable in Blender Preferences. It's already included with Blender, you just need to turn it on. So then I'm going to navigate to where I've got this, and let's see. So I'm going to click that and bring it in. I hit G to grab it, and S to scale it. G to grab it again. So there's that. I'll go ahead and do the other one too. I may turn it off until I get to that stage of the process. I'll hit Shift A again, Image, Images as Planes. Okay, there's that one. I'll hit S to scale it. G to grab it, bring it over here, scale it a little bit more. G to grab it. You want to bring it over here. So if I look over in my outliner, you can see I have page 1 and page 2. I'm going to turn off page 2. So we're left with page 1. I'm going to scroll in. And we can see this starts with the stick figure, and then it builds on the shapes. And then it kind of refines the shapes, and then we end up with the final result. Okay, so I'm going to start with the stick figure, and I'm just using the default stroke, and then I'll go to draw mode. Okay, I'm just going to use the default stroke and the default black setting, and then if I want to add colors at the end, I will. So we'll just start drawing this. And I'm very sketchy with my drawing. I wish I was more smooth about it, but it's a habit I seem to have problems breaking. And again, I don't typically draw like this. I probably should. I usually just go in really rough and hope for the best, which is probably not the best way to work. So I can see that elbow circle is about even with that spine. And then this arm is about the same, so it's a little higher because it's a little more forward. And then you can see that hand is about even with the shoulder. So this is something to think about while you're drawing is, how things are measuring up. So I can see these, I'm off here because that shoulder actually drops a little bit. So those two in relationship to each other, and then the elbows, again, that one's a little higher, and the hand's almost even with the shoulder. So I can see my spine needs to come back a little bit compared to the original. Now this hand looks like it's about here where the thigh is gonna be. So I can tell that looks too long, so I've done something wrong. So if I erase that and make the hand more, well, I think the hips are a little high, so let me pull that up. Now I'm going to go back to object mode, hit scale, bring this down a little bit, hit G to grab it. Then we'll go back to draw mode. So you notice on these DC animated characters, it seems to me like the thigh is a little shorter and then the bottom part of the leg's longer. You can see this foot right here is a little lower than this foot. This hand's probably a little too close, so let me adjust that. Okay, and then you can see we have this curve right here. And then the weight of the body is going to be mainly on this leg. So his head should probably be a little more over because you want that central line of weight from the head to the foot. So that's pretty good. Okay, so instead of drawing back over this, I'm going to go to the grease pencil and I'm going to click on this plus icon to add another layer. I'm going to click on the lines layer. So this opacity, I'm going to bring that down a little bit. Then I'll go back to this layer, double click on it and name it shapes. Then I'll scroll back in. So this one you can see where this circle was, and then you can see where the line is. So let me do that. And then I want to bring this over here. I'm going to try to be less sketchy about this. I'm not doing very well at it. So I can tell this line here is further away from the shoulder than mine is. Now I think in traditional anatomy, from your shoulder to your elbow and your elbow to your wrist is about the same, but you can see on this one that the upper arm is much smaller than the lower arm. So it sounds pretty basic, but to me the hardest part of drawing from another object is actually paying attention to what you're seeing. You know, to really see how it's made and what it's made of is sometimes difficult. I guess you'd call it active viewing, but it's kind of hard to get used to really paying attention. And I've studied some animation too, and one of the jokes in the animator's workbook is about listening to music and watching TV while you work, which I do a lot of. But I do think that if you're trying to do the active viewing, that it does make it difficult to be able to do that when you're distracted because you've really got to think about what you're looking at. And I came out of view, so I hit 0 on the numpad to get back. Shift and middle mouse button to scroll down. So this hip kicks out, or this thigh kicks out quite a bit. So I accidentally changed the size of my brush and I actually think this looks better. Feels like a larger brush sometimes makes it easier to be smoother rather than really getting in there and, you know, with a thin brush and really trying to get close to the object and have perfect little lines when actually most of the time it looks better to have a more of a sketchy line. Okay, so I think there's that phase. So I hit shift middle mouse button to drag over. Actually, I'm going to go to object mode. I'm going to click that, hit G to grab it, and bring it over closer because I don't need it that far away. I'm going to go back to draw mode. I can't go back to draw mode because I don't have grease pencil selected. So I'm going to click on stroke and then it'll let me go back to draw mode. So I'm actually going to add another layer here. I'm going to double click it and hit shapes 2 as the name. Then I'm going to turn off the lines layer and I'm going to go to shape layer and I'll bring the opacity of it down. I'm going to go back to draw object mode, click on the drawing, hit G to bring it up. I don't need to see that other section anymore. Hit S to scale it. G to grab it. Okay, and then we'll go to stroke and then back to draw mode. Then we'll click on the grease pencil properties, make sure I'm on shapes 2, And then I am going to bring my pen radius down a little bit. And then I'll start penciling the more final version in. And again, I just can't get it as smooth as the original. So I'm going to go up here to my brush and I'm going to turn off radius adjustment by pressure and then strength by pressure, and I'm going to turn the strength all the way up to 100. I feel like I'm getting some line variation that you really don't want in the inking process, or at least the finalizing process. So I'm going to go back over those lines I just drew to darken those up. Go to my eraser and I want to change it from soft to hard. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. You can see my lines are kind of jittery, and I may clean those up on the next pass, but I can turn on smoothing, and I'll show you how to do that once I'm done with this pass. So I think this book is pretty helpful if you're wanting to emulate this style. You can always watch the cartoon, but it's, hard to get, to me, a good reference from that when this actually has it just printed out. So one of the artists is Tim Levins, who I really like his work. He's done a lot of the animated Batman comic books, and I really like the style. It's obviously very similar to Bruce Timm, so I think he fits well into that role. I'm also not great with hard surfaces. So one benefit of Blender and mixing 3D is that, if you want to model your hard surfaces and then go back and either draw over them in grease pencil or use freestyle, which I do, and I've been meaning to create another tutorial on freestyle. I think it actually works really well. I can tell this gun's going to be off. Mr. Freeze kind of has a Martian Manhunter look shape to his face in this book. I think I'll keep the same drawing, but I want to go to the layer, click on it, make sure I got it clicked. Hit this drop down, hit duplicate. So I'm going to turn off the first shapes layer, and then I want to turn off shapes 2 and double click here and change it to 3. And again, this is much sketchier than the original. You know what, I want to click on shapes layer 3, hit minus, delete that. Then we'll turn back on shapes layer 2. We'll turn the opacity down quite a bit. I want to go to advanced. Now I'm going to go to stroke. Then we'll go to smooth and turn that up to say 0.2. I don't use this much, so I'm not sure exactly how well that number will do. You can also hit stabilize stroke. Let me draw that. So I don't like the delay you get from that. So I'm going to go back to stroke. I want to turn it down to 10. Hit enter. Okay, that's better. That's much less of a stroke, much less of a delay. So now that I've got I'm going to hit plus to make another layer, double click on it and change it to shape 3. I know these aren't the best naming conventions. And then, so my line looks good. Also, I'm going to click on shapes 2. I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to change my selection to select lasso. I'm going to come in here and I want to grab his head because it's too big. I'm going to hit G to bring that over and S to scale it down. G again. And it may hit R to rotate it just a bit. Okay, I think that looks good. Then we'll go back to draw mode. Okay, so then we'll click back on shape layer 3, which I spelled wrong, and add a P to it. Okay, with my radius at 15, let me see what that looks like. I actually want to decrease that to 10. My strength at 1 with no pressure, so I should get a nice even black line. So let me try to get this circle in, which I'm not going to be very good at. And I think I'll keep that for now. So then we'll go back in and go over my lines. Try to do it in one line without being really sketchy or having to go over the line multiple times like I typically do. So one thing Blender has is a clipping tool or a cutter tool. So sometimes it's easier to overlap lines and then go back and cut the overlap out. That way you don't have to stop mid-line, which can sometimes cause you not to have a straight line. So I'm going to go back to stroke and I'm going to turn off that stabilized stroke. It feels like it's not giving me real-time movement, so I'll just have to do my best. So I'll try the cutter tool in this instance. So I'm going to bring that up and we'll bring this over, bring this down. Okay, I'm going to go to the cutter tool. So that worked pretty well. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to click on the circle tool. I'm going to hit shift as I drag that out, but I'm in the wrong spot. So I got shift and control, which is going to give me a smooth circle from the center. Let's see if I can grab this. Okay, I think that looks good. So I hit enter to finalize it, and then I'm going to pull out another one, holding shift and control. Okay, enter to finalize it. And we'll go back to my pen tool. So I'm going to try the cutter tool on these again, because you can get a nice sweeping line if you don't have to like start or stop at the exact spot. So I'm going to go to Sculpt mode. I'll click on the grab brush, and I'm actually going to pull these lines up a little bit. Okay, then I'm going to go to the smooth brush. Which one is it? And draw over that to smooth that out a little bit. And if you got jittery lines like mine, you can use the smooth brush to kind of smooth those out. See how much smoother those look now. I go to the draw tool and add the lines on the boots. So if you notice, I had a bulge there, which is what I'm used to drawing, but that's actually a straight line. There's not a lot of muscle definition here, so I took that out. So I'm going to go to object mode, hit S, scale that down a little bit, hit G to grab it and bring it over, scroll back out, go to draw mode. Okay, so I'm going to turn page 1 off, turn page 2 on. I want to go to object mode, click it, grab it, bring it over, scale it up. And then we'll go back to stroke and then go back to draw mode. Let's see what I'm missing. So on him, we're still missing some shading on the eyes, which I think adds a lot because if you look, there's not a lot of shading here. So the fact that these are shadowed in really emphasize them because there's not a lot else in the drawing like that. Okay, let me hide page 2. Okay, the color on this is pretty simple. You can flat the colors and then go back in and do masks to create the shadows. So I will probably do that in the next video just because it's a little more in-depth compared to what I've been doing. So I'm going to save this file out now, which I probably should have been saving as I went. And then in the next video, I'll go in and show the shading process, and I'll probably clean up the gun a little bit. Before that, I may trace over this a little bit just to get the line work a little smoother for the coloring process, but I think this looks good, and I really like the book, especially if you just wanted a quick drawing session where you like this style and wanted to see a breakdown of how it works. The book actually has 144 pages in it, so there's a lot of examples in here, some even group examples or fight examples. So, you know, just to sit down and practice for an hour if you like this style, I think it's a good purchase, and I'm glad I got it. So if you found this video helpful, if so, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.